try this one more time. Hopefully everything takes. So, joys of when people update technology. Alright, so here we are with some Gruul Energy. One thing over the next couple weeks I'm going to try to do is kind of, I don't want to say tie off the books on Prowess, but over the next 3 weekends I want to kind of dive in as deep as I can on 3 decks that are effectively not really a part of the format right now, at least in terms of bigger format. Obviously, you guys at home might still be playing these decks in your local game store or online, but much like Boros Burn, even with Bolt Wave, they just are not putting up results, though certainly people talk about different builds in the Discord or anything like that. Unfortunately, I haven't had the time to keep up with all the little innovations that people work with. I know that the one general consensus is that most people have been putting up the most results with the Unstable Amulet version, so I figured that would be the first one to cover. There are unfortunately no recent deck finishes on MTG Goldfish to pull from, so we're kind of working with some old, a little bit retreaded information, but the basic build hasn't changed all that much. It's really more like what your sideboard cards are and stuff along those lines. So the first thing I will say is Cargra, thanks for the follow. These decks aren't well positioned anymore. MH3 completely rewrote the format. Most decks, unless they got something from MH3, just don't exist in the format right now, or they've been pushed down, a good solid couple of tiers. Whether it was, I guess the only deck that I can't say that about is Domain Zoo, but even though they have been playing some of the variants of like Psychic Frog and such, so basically if you were a tier 1 deck, you're now like a tier 3 deck like Yawgmoth, unless your name's Living End or Groyos, and those decks were just inherently turn 3 decks kind of anyway, and even both of them have been kind of struggling to put up reasonable finishes of late. Prowess, much like it kind of suffered during, I think, MH2, it got some new tools, like right before MH3 dropped, and then it was a deck popping for a minute, and then just kind of went. Now, this is the deck that has, the version that has the most tools from MH3. Galvanic Discharge, Unstable Amulet, and Amped Raptor. So you are playing the energy package that is helped make the energy decks pretty good in Modern. The problem becomes is you're not playing the white shell, which the white creatures are just a little bit better in Modern currently. Mostly just because God of Souls and Ocelot Pride are dumb 1-drops, followed by Amped Raptor and Johnny being completely broken 2-drops, and then Flage probably being arguably the best 3-drop in the Modern format. Combine that with Galvanic Discharge and Bolt, and you have a recipe for a mid-range deck that has a fast clock, has quick disruption, and with white has a lot of great sideboard cards, and then they finally added the One Ring to make it a complete, total, utter menace to the format. Rest of the format sped up by half a turn or a turn, or gained some amount of ridiculous cards from MH3, whether it was Psychic Frog, Ugin's Labyrinth, whether it was the modal face lands for Belcher, etc. They're playing almost Legacy power level. We're playing almost pre-MH. Well, we are playing basically pre-MH2 or pre-MH3 Modern power level, which is, I don't want to say closer to Pioneer than Modern, but it's unfortunate. But anyways, into the basics of what makes Prowess a deck. Prowess is a deck which is one of the red aggro variants based off of Historic Sly. Historic Sly was a deck that was mainly built around cheap red creatures, cheap red burn, and is kind of both the spiritual successor or predecessor to both Burn and Prowess. The point of the deck was to get cheap creatures down, get in as much damage as quickly as possible before your opponent could stabilize the board, then finish the game off with a flurry of direct damage spells, most historically the card Lightning Bolt. The things have kind of split in the more recent decade of Magic. You now basically have Burn, which is, it has creatures like Goblin Guide, Swift Spear, and Eidolon, but is a little bit more reliant on direct damage, whereas the Prowess variants, obviously nicknamed after the Prowess mechanic, are more concerned about early damage, or basically crossing the finish line most of the time with creatures, and occasionally finishing like the last 6 points of damage with lightning bolts, lava darts, etc. This version is more akin to a mid-range deck than it is an aggro deck, although it still is an aggressive deck at heart, with Monastery Swift Spear, a 1/2 haste Prowess creature, and Dragon Rage's Channeler, with Surveil ability and relatively reasonable ability to become a 3/3 that helps to fix your draws a little bit, being the 1-drops in this build. Some of the other versions of the deck, the Teamer version and the more combo-centric version, tended to play Soulscar Mage, but this one is eschewing that for Amped Raptor. While Amped Raptor doesn't play great with your pump spells, it does play much better in kind of a grindy attrition game, allowing you to find additional threats, additional pump spells, additional cards with Mishra's Bauble, etc. And then Slickshot Show Off kind of being the centerpiece of the deck. The main reason why the deck was even kind of remotely playable. This card was all about closing out the game as quickly as possible. And then the plot ability allows you to kind of play around a little bit with removal, potentially holding up protection spells. You plot it one turn, then play it the next turn when you have, say, a mutagenic growth, or in some builds, the blossoming defense to protect the creature. And then the energy build supplements that with Unstable Amulet, which takes advantage of a little bit of Galvanic Iteration or Galvanic Discharge and Amped Raptor to build up a little bit of energy. And then the mid game, if you get 1 or 2 of these down, sometimes you can just burn your opponent out if you're casting spells from exile, whether it be through Unstable Amulets, whether it be Plot from Slickshot Show Off. Other variants were playing different things, but basically this was kind of and Amped Raptor obviously playing it from exile as well. The rest of the deck, Galvanic Discharge and Bolt. Galvanic Discharge can help clear the way, or just accrue you some energy. If your opponent doesn't even have any creatures, you can target your own creatures. Lightning Bolt is just the best direct damage spell in Magic. 3 damage for 1 mana at instant speed. And then Lava Dart helps to fight 1 toughness creatures, but also helps to trigger Prowess, or trigger Delirium, or trigger a Surveil on Dragon Rage's Channeler quite easily. So this can be 1 damage to whatever target, and then flash it back by sacrificing a mountain. Sometimes that's a bit of a cost, but sometimes it's you're willing to pay that to protect a Monastery Swift Spear save from a damage spell, or just pushing that last extra bit of damage with a Slickshot Show Off, etc. And then finally, some of these versions run a couple copies of Underworld Breach. This is a card that allows you to play things from your graveyard at the cost of exiling 3 cards. Basically, this is a mid-game card that whenever you fill your graveyard up, say you've run out of resources, say you have 4 or 5 lands, you play this. Maybe you can play back a creature and a couple burn spells, close out the game, or one of the other strategies this version of the deck can do, somewhat similar to Grinding Breach Station, is play multiple Mishra's Baubles out of the graveyard. Basically draw, a new hand of 3, 4, 5 cards in the middle of the game, kind of close out the game that way. Mana base for this one was a little simplistic, but basically almost all red except your Stomping Ground and your 1 of Commercial District with a Surveil land here, and then Barbarian Ring as kind of a way to deal a little bit of damage with your mana base, and then a bunch of fetch lands to be able to find all your different things. Sideboard for this version was very simplistic. 4 Tormod's Crypts for any graveyard nonsense. 4 Pick Your Poisons for the modal being able to sacrifice, force your opponent to sacrifice things like Scion of the Draco, or Murktide region, also allowing you to hit things like Trinisphere, Snaring Bridge, potentially them sacrificing the One Ring. But the downside of being a sorcery seed spell, but is a nice modal functional card for what you need in a lot of situations. Different Blood Moon effects. I mean, the only green spell you're truly playing is your sideboard Pick Your Poisons and Mutagenic Growth, which obviously you can cast for its hybrid, not hybrid, its Phyrexian mana cost. And then a couple copies of Meltdown in this version helped against artifacts when artifacts were a little bit more of a problem in the format. Usually Trinisphere and Chalice, as well as anything out of the affinity lists, and then most of these decks have been playing Gigantha for most of the history. Taking a look at another version from a little bit later in the format, you'll notice the main deck is almost the same, except we weren't playing any copies of Mutagenic Growth. Instead, we're playing Crash Through. Some versions are playing Monstrous Rage to be a little bit more like the Gruul combo version. But, you know, land base is very similar. Most of your main deck's the same, other than Crash Through gives all your creatures trample and cantrips. Sideboard, a lot of the same things. You'll see, you know, still the 4 Magus, mainly here for the Eldrazi matchups. Magebane Lizard, this one came and went, largely depending on the presence of Storm being the main one you want this against. Being able to punish them for casting multiple non-creature spells in turn. End the Festivities, this could be End the Festivities, this could be Rough Tumble, this could be Pyroclasm, this could be Fairfire Foes. Basically anything that clears out a bunch of 0 and 1 or 1 and 2 toughness creatures, especially out of the Boros lists. This has came and gone throughout the list as you're playing a little bit of a slower game, so you need to be able to kind of clear the board at least once against them. A couple copies of Pick Your Poison we've already discussed, and then Tormod's Crypt in addition to Graveyard Nonsense. Sometimes you bring in some amount of these against Flage decks because, let's face it, you're generally not going to outgrind a Flage. Now, why do people play this particular flavor of Prowess over the other two? The two main ones in Modern being... The three main ones in Modern are this energy build, the Gruul Prowess build with Scale Up and Assault Strobe, and then the Teamer/Izzet version with usually the cantrips of Preordain and Expressive Iteration. So the reason to play this one over the other two is this deck probably has the best long game of the three Prowess variants. You're a little bit slower in terms of your early pressure, but between cards like Mishra's Bauble, Unstable Amulet, Amped Raptor, Underworld Breach, you're less likely to run out of gas than, say, the combo version, or even the Teamer version to an extent. That deck is going to see a lot more cards, but its cards all basically do the same thing. This version, at least Unstable Amulet, is both card advantage and a little bit of damage in some spots. So a lot of it comes down to in the fact that this version plays a little bit better with Blood Moon than the Teamer/Izzet version, because the Izzet version you actively have to have a blue source to play some of your better spells in the mid game. Preordain's looking for another threat, your Expressive Iterations looking for a piece of action or a way to close out the game. Whereas this version almost doesn't care if it gets cut off of green, with the exception of Pick Your Poisons. So that is the main reason this version sees play. Its average kill time is probably about turn 4, which is comparable to Boros Burn, Boros Energy, and some of the slower combo decks in the format, like Belcher. The downside to this version is it's a little bit slower against decks like Belcher, against Storm, decks where you have to have hate cards in the post-board matchups, or your Amulet Titan, or you're just going to get run out of the building because you don't have the ability to kill on turn 2, turn 3, like the Gruul Prowess version of the deck, well, the Gruul combo version of Prowess. So basically, you play this one in a meta where you kind of expect there to be Dimir Murktide, Boros Energy, more of the, maybe even Belcher, a little bit of the slower threats, throw slower, fair mid-range decks than in a format where you expect Eldrazi and Amulet and Storm and etc. At least that is my personal experience with the deck. Maybe others of you out there have a little bit different perspective on it, but as far as when I've played the deck, that's generally when you want to see this one version the most, and it's probably recognized, at least from the discourse I've seen in the Discord, it's probably recognized as the current best version of Prowess, but best version of three decks that are just not competitive in the format right now is. But that's kind of why the deck is, how the decks come about. This is kind of the spiritual successor to the mono red Prowess decks from 3-4 years ago that used to run Soul Scar Mage, Monastery Swift Spear, occasionally Kiln Fiend, and then as its late game would run Bedlam Reveler usually, and they had Manamorphose and Blood Moons in either the main or the sideboard. The decks that kind of eventually evolved into Hayashi Red, and then they kind of flipped back a little bit almost whenever Slickshot came out, because finally there was a card that helped these decks close out the game quickly and wasn't Kiln Fiend soft in that anything could block it, and this was before cards like Monstrous Rage existed. So Slickshot has haste, you can plot it. And it flies, so it was basically Kiln Fiend 2.0, but better. So that's kind of the why of the decks. Let's go ahead and get into some kind of practice matchups in the. Is the 2-player queue going? No. So create. Do not want that deck. I want Gruul Energy. Is the one I want? Yeah, this is the one I want. So I've been working on some burn stuff with Bolt Wave. I mean, it's kind of where I got the idea to kind of do this series as well, was the fact that with Burn before Bolt Wave, when I was waiting on Bolt Wave to get on Magic Online after it had been spoiled, I was kind of starting to do like an intro to Burn series, much like we'd done on this channel years ago. And I kind of wanted to do an in-depth look at the decks we've been playing for the last 6 months since we moved away from Mana Traders. The main thing with this deck is really hoping. Curiosity. Alright, just making sure. Problem is I have no idea if anybody's chatting, because this new version of whatchamacallit just is kind of crappy. Okay, well, I'm going to try to pay attention to both chats, but it doesn't look like chats are coming through very well. We'll look at that first hand. It has no lands. This version, I mean, it isn't ideal, but I think we keep it, put back a basic mountain. First turn we can use Mishra's Bauble and the fetch land here to kind of fix things a little bit, and then we immediately get paired into that, so we're just going to go ahead and pop that. No reason to let that around. So it's kind of ironic. I did want to run into this matchup a little bit, but okay. Party Thrasher, sure. Party Rock is in the house tonight. Alright, so it's a slightly different version. So go ahead and plot this. Okay. It's a cute card. It's kind of almost like Inti, just a little bit less. And they could even convoke out the One Ring if they had chosen. Interesting. Guide a Soul, sure. Looks like they're going to leave up a removal spell potentially, which we're not really beating, but unless we draw Mutagenic Growth. I'm going to go ahead and fetch and get a mountain here since we don't really need the green mana either which way. So, boop. Which one of these do we care about the most? I suppose Soul Guide, even with this broken ability here. They have a removal spell, more power to them. I guess we should go with Amped Raptor this turn. It's the most mana efficient play. Amped Raptor and an Amp Raptor. It's 2 energy at least, so at least if we yep, shocker, here's the bolt that they've been telegraphing. Flage. It's gonna be basically impossible to beat, and this is like one of the reasons why our deck is so rough in the format, is any type of aggressive deck just basically can't beat a Flage deck. This card's Galvanic Discharge. Okay. Opponent can give something flying here. Should presume they're going to give the Goblin token. Not going to trade here. They're going to play Flage post-combat, and we're basically toast. So, I mean, we could try to lean into this game a little bit, but outside of an Unstable Amulet or a copy of Underworld Breach, we were kind of just completely out of this game. Meltdown doesn't do much against this deck. Blood Moon, they play Blood Moon themselves. Pick Your Poison, not really the matchup for that. The only card you could really argue is some amount of copies of Tormod's Crypt. And I've brought this in the past against Boros, and it just hasn't felt relevant. So I'm just going to kind of move on here. I'd like to play first. Can't really keep the 5-lander, so mulligan. Sand has potential, but I think we put a Mishra's Bauble away. It's gonna fetch. We could play Barbarian Ring here, but I just don't think the 1 damage is worth getting cute with a fetch land later. So, or, you know, trying to hold the fetch land for Surveil or something later. I mean, I assume this is good as dead. Mm-hmm. Put the land on top. Now here's where Amped Raptor's a little kind of hit or miss, because we could hit like a Galvanic Discharge or something, but as the Prowess deck, I think we need to be on the board, so yeah, we'll cast it. Doesn't do much this turn, but and it's just these kind of like value turns over and over again that make it so hard for decks like ours to be, you know, even slightly relevant. Could play this. So am I willing to sacrifice a mountain to get my opponent to throw away their thing in a block here? I think I am. I think we have to push the damage as much as possible. And then flash back. We're going to 9. Alright, they concede. Alright, at least they didn't concede the match. So, still think once again we submit. And that's kind of the dichotomy of this match, or really the modern format in general right now. If you're a fair deck, you have to be doing these kind of broken, well, not even broken, but like almost what's the term I'm looking for? Almost cascade-like things every turn. Like value, even your aggro decks have to be value on top of value. Now, the other reason I'm considering this hand is 4 lands with a Surveil, plot, and then like turn 4 try to like pile up a bunch of spells and go for a win. It's not the best of strategies, but it's one of the strategies against these Boros decks that can work. Now the problem is, you know, I'm just gonna go ahead and bend that. Like if this Ocelot Pride gets like a bunch of help and makes a bunch of bodies, you know, we could be in a little bit of trouble, but especially if they go like Party Thrasher. That's an interesting one. I don't know if that's a newer addition to the whatchamacallit decks or not. Oh, hello there. Just gonna plot. I mean, if my opponent turns around and plays I guess Deafening Silence doesn't really hit us, but Drannith Magistrate would kind of be a bit of a blowout here. Yeah, this is where things get stupid. Mm-hmm. And then they get to give the Ocelot Pride. Yep. So Ocelot Pride's currently the bigger threat. Problem is, this Party Thrasher is just so Like, their deck didn't need to see more card select. I wonder what they've cut to get this in the deck. Oh, another MH3 card, go figure. This card's a Johnny to get Ragavan and a land. Okay, what is your last card? The One Ring? Oh, just a Flage. No biggie. That leaves us dead. That leaves us dead. I can't really win the game. So that's currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage. So kind of miracle would it take for us to kill them next turn? That would definitely not be the miracle we were looking for. So I'm gonna Slick Shot, Amped Raptor. If we hit Unstable Amulet into I don't even know. Unstable Amulet into Bolt would be the maximum we could hit here. Or Unstable Amulet into... Yep, that definitely ain't gonna qualify. And even if we leave all of our blockers back, we're just dead, so... This is why the energy matchup is so rough overall. Gert Furby wins the match. So... Well, that kind of gives you an idea of, like, the strengths and the weaknesses of this deck. Like, it plays a better grindy game than the combo version, but you're less able to just, like, snap end the game. And that's one, like, I think the number one question I get asked about Prowess is which version of Prowess is the best? I guess technically this one in the current meta, but it's a subjective question because I don't think this version is good against the grindy decks anyway. I think we gotta go basic mountain into DRC Bobble here. I could try to wait and try to, you know, if we spike a second land, I wonder if my opponent was considering forcing that. Oh, just got control. Fantastic. We're getting all the greatest hits, so why this deck isn't playable right now. One lander was certainly questionable, so. Remorseless Cleric. Really? You're playing that in your main deck. Okay. I've done that too, but the problem is, I don't think it's the correct route either. I honestly don't think that, I still don't think it helps. Like, you can try to play a grinding game, but then they just play the one rare Flage. And you lose. I mean, you can certainly win games and matches, but in general, I think, yeah, I don't think Prowess is well positioned anymore. Or, I shouldn't even say well positioned. I don't think it's constructively playable right now. Opponent's got a dress down, sure. Which we knew about. It's going to bend that. Happy to bend that as well. Sad part is we know they have the Solitude, so. Yeah, they were thinking about playing the Solitude, which they should know that. Yeah, fantastic. I should have known better than to play into that dress down. I think they were like, oh, I get to. They should have just, or they realized they couldn't block for free. But if they have Wrath the Skies here, none of this matters. Opponent's like, I done screwed up. Sure, I'll take the 3. Especially Solitude pitching Solitude. That doesn't bode well for them. Land will be card number, or type number 3. So I'm just going to slam Amped Raptor. This is going to eat a counter spell most likely. Nope, it's just, I was going to say, is it going to eat a Spell Snare? Remand. Okay, sure. Leaving a Bolt on top. Seems like a good card to have. One, two. Yeah, that's just it. Is you can overboard for the matchup and still get destroyed. And Boros literally, I mean, it'll board like random nonsense, and none of it's good, or none of it's like particularly aimed for us, but just, you know, like a random Orum's chant. Hey, a Flage. Shocker. You know, I find it really hilarious that Wizards ban Fury to make creature decks more playable, and then an MH3 immediately prints Fury Jr. Like, did you really accomplish all that much by banning Fury and then turning around and unleashing this nonsense on the format? I presume they are evoking the Solitude on DRC, really. That is bold. I'm going to put that there. So do we have lethal lined up here? +4, +4. And then 4+4, 10. Yeah, we have lethal lined up. Prowess math is one of the trickier parts of the deck sometimes. And this is how you have to eke your wins in this format right now. Is, you know, get lucky, your opponent runs out of resources, and, you know. Now, I don't really love any of the cards in this matchup, but against Jeskai, I think Blood Moon's a little bit better than Lava Dart. I leave Mutagenic Growth in, even though it isn't great, because potentially against Galvanic, Bolt, and Flage, it can save your creature some of the time. Although, you know, it's still tricky because, well, they have Solitude, so. Well, Salty, I don't know what else you'd call it. It basically is Fury Jr. What's up, Foz? For some reason, to use a Ghostbusters thing, the streams aren't cross-saying for some reason. Restream changed the formatting of their platform, and it's been giving me nothing but trouble the last couple weeks. I think on the draw we risk this hand. The one lander once again is a bit risky, but lead on one DRC. I'm not going to play Bobble here just because we get a little bit more actually, yeah, I'm going to wait a turn. Hopefully we rip the second land and get the most off of this. Are we going to get hit by a dive down? Or, yeah, it looks like we're getting hit by a dive down. Maybe not. I'm not sure why they would have shocked that in then. Gotta say, are they really gonna remend? No. Blue mana. No idea what they'd use as a blue mana here. Consign to memory? Okay. Okay. Force of negation. That's a good one to know about. I guess it would be great if we, you know, could draw lands. I'm about to get furied. Let's get furious. Oh no, Wrath of the Skies for one. Sure. I think the absolutely insane part I found about this deck, or about the format, is I think Prowess has a better Jeskai matchup than it does a Boros matchup. Not saying we're going to win this match, because we're about to get windmill slammed with a One Ring, but Alright. Dig for land number 3. Hope and pray. Land number 3 found. Play this out. Incentivize them to do something dumb like play Flage. And maybe we can land a Magus next turn and have a prayer. Although if they have, you know, Solitude or Bolt, it kind of doesn't matter. But at least it gives us a plan. Are we about to get Wrathed again? Green, blue. Or blue, white. Sure. We seriously about to use Mutagenic Growth to protect a Magus of the Moon. Yeah, they have the Solitude, so none of it matters. This is +4/+4. Sure, let's force the issue. If they have another Wrath of Skies or whatever, this is our only real chance to win this game, I think, so force them to have the exile-based removal now. Otherwise, they die during their own upkeep to their own One Ring. Okay, not quite, but we knew about that force of negation too. Oh well. We tried. We forced them to have it. Well, we knew they had the force. We didn't know if they had the blue card. Why they are so insistent on having consigned to memory against us feels a little sketch, but yeah, they just get another copy of the One Ring, sure. All right, so I think we plot Slick Shot and just pass the turn. We could play DRC, and DRC would certainly threaten more. They'd have to have more answers. Now they've pushed themselves into a point where they have to cast a third copy of the One Ring again, because not even Solitude would get them out of this situation. 2, 3, 4. Hey, third copy of the One Ring. Who loves this play pattern? Once again, passing a turn, doing nothing. Opponent does not tap the One Ring, notably. Now they do. Okay. Prismatic Ending. Wrath of Skies for 1. Or another March. Sure. Opponent goes to 1, so... Actually, you know, I think I left Galvanic Discharge in the deck. It's possible I should have boarded those out and left the Lava Darts in instead. Let's just add something else to the equation. Do you have another Force of Negation? Shocker. It goes to 1. Any other plot cards that could possibly be played? Seriously, that's in your deck? I'll have to look after the match, Foz. Because I honestly don't even know what other plot cards are out there. They go this into Flage. Yep. Land, please. It's not terrible. Okay. I'm gonna say basically if they have anything here, we're kind of up a crick. So they're willingly going to 5. That's bold. I was gonna say, even if you had... They had surgical extraction in against us? Oh, Lord. Okay. People board some wild ways. Plot cards, MTG. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't just include the mechanic plot. So, no. Of course, wizards would kind of suck in that regard. Scryfall, plot mechanic. Okay, so create an exile sheriff. Cast your second spell, create a red mercenary. Choose battlefield, target instant or sorcerer gains flashback. Highway robbery, I think, has been considered playable at points. Even Interrupter, which I think only gives plot. Jace Reawaken has seen play, but that just gives plot. I've seen Highway Robbery depending on the format, but most of these other ones, Lilia has seen some play, but more in Commander. Outcast or Trailblazer in Pioneer, but not really Modern. Becomes target, becomes plotted. Does deal damage to any target. Dijin. Pillage the Bog has seen some play. Aloe Alchemist has seen some play, but mostly in Coyote. But as far as modern power level, yeah, basically Slickshot's the main one. It is a very cool mechanic, and it's one of the things, a lot of people trash Wizards for a lot of things. Whether it's the MH3 or all the different, Universes Beyond nonsense. And I'm not even opposed to Universes Beyond. There's just so many pardon my language, so many printings that it's impossible to keep up with. Like if you did, say, I don't know, a large Final Fantasy printing one year, and then you did a large Fallout printing another year, and then you did a large Doctor Who, that wouldn't be as hard to keep up. But when you have Transformers and Marvel and My Little Pony and Star Trek and Star Wars, and I'm making some of those up, but it's just when you have 10 Universes Beyond come out in a year, it's okay, unless you play Commander and you're a super ultra competitive Commander player and all these obscure cards from all these sets, it's there's no real way to keep track of. Oh, don't go. Yeah. I don't even know if they have a SpongeBob one. So, at least our opponents got a sense of humor. Their username is Gin Rummy. So, we'll keep this hand. We've got Slickshot into Amped or Unstable into Slickshot. So. He's going to play the fetch land on one. Oh, I'm not... I understand why they do it. And I understand people buy the product. And the plan is working in the short term. But for the longer health of the game, I don't know that introducing all of that at once is great. I mean, certainly it brings in new people, and if you have products like Foundation to help lay the groundwork to get people into the game, or that you get into the game to understand the game, and you can bridge it correctly, that's great. But unfortunately, and this is going to really sound callous, I trust Wizards about as far as I can throw my couch to manage things fantastically.
That ain't far.
Exactly.
You compare me.
I don't trust any corporation to run anything well. I mean, I'm sorry, once the original, and I'm going to go on a business tangent here, but once the original owner that drives a business to heights leaves the company, generally speaking, the company gets taken over by a bunch of suits, and the suits generally suck at what they're doing other than making themselves a lot of money.
That's why they can afford
I mean, I've worked at Walmart for the longest portion of my working career. I've worked for McDonald's, two extremely large corporations. What?
What's this have to do with magic?
I'm getting back to it.
Because I was going to say, that's pointless.
But basically, just once the suits take over, the game gets miserable. Alright, DRC, now that we know we're up against Eldrazi, we can just kind of go nuts and try to kill them, because this is what we gotta do in this matchup. We'll keep the Bolt. Like, I honestly wish nothing but the success of Magic, but as many people as they're bringing in with these things, I also know a large portion of the gameplay, or of the player base, is also leaving because they can't keep up, and organized play is such a joke compared to what it used to be. You know, no Hall of Fame, no real consistent way to stay, you know, playing Magic as a, like, not even a decent way of living, unless you're like someone like Andre Mengucci, who spiked a huge tournament when they were dumping a ton of money into it, or you're an aspiring spike, or a young dingo, or, you know, someone who has really good, you know, content creator amounts. Am I about to get hit by a Kozilek? I was going to say, am I about to get hit by a Kozilek's Return? That would be really bad. But I just wonder what my opponent can have for 2 mana. Apparently they can have a Dismember. So, linebacker gets to give itself haste. They get to hit us for 7 here. Sire of 7 Deaths. That's a terrifying card. Hit us for 8. Don't know that we can deal them 10 one turn, but we will certainly try. Start by casting Raptor. Chits. I think we go face with this one. I think we'll Galvanic Discharge that. One. And then, okay. Looks like we have won the match because our opponents ran away. Yep. Alright, so anybody have any questions about this version of, well, about Gruul Energy, Prowess in general? I think the intro, I tried to in-depth explain it as well as I could. We got to see a couple different matches. We got to see Jeskai, we got to see Boros, and we got to see, you know, game 1 of an Eldrazi matchup. I think that does a good job of showcasing the strengths and the weaknesses of this version of the deck. I think we did a good job of kind of showing some of the tricks with, prowess math, which can be its own, could probably be its own video if there was enough interest in prowess anymore. Just learning to cast, with Swift Spear, every spell is +1, plus whatever it does. Same thing with Soulscar Mage. With Slickshot Show Off, it's +2, plus whatever the damage the spell does. So I like Prowess. I like Burn. I honestly wish they were both better positioned in the format. I've tried tweaking some other versions, and I just don't know if there's anything that the main versions of Prowess can do to make themselves more competitive. I've been playing through a lot of Bolt Wave decks, and with Burn, don't really think... the first weekend there's been no sudden surge of Burn results. So, don't know that the new Lava Spike's going to fix Burn's problems either. But I think for the next 2 weeks, next week we're definitely going to be streaming for sure. Next week I'm going to be doing the Teamer / Is It version of the deck. Do a deep dive on that. And then we'll do the deep dive on Prowess. I'm hoping December or the 3rd. Well, let's see. Let's actually look at a calendar, because what would be December 1st? And that would kind of wrap up Prowess for now. December 8th, there's a very good chance I won't be streaming because we'll be in the middle of moving then. So I'm really hoping to hit, obviously next week I know for sure, and then the following weekend, Thanksgiving, will be at my in-laws for a little while, and I'm hoping we'll be back and settled on Sunday to where I can do the other stream. And then we'll have kind of done an in-depth thing on this, an in-depth thing on Teamer, and then an in-depth thing on Gruul, the Prowess, or the combo version of the deck. And then I think we're probably going to put away... No, unfortunately, Foz, we're just moving... We're not getting a house. We're moving to a bigger apartment closer to my family for different reasons. I'll still be staying at the same job I'm at, but I'm going to be commuting a lot longer of distance just for space purposes, because we're basically living in the city right now, and it's just too darn expensive for what you get. Whereas back towards my parents' area, they have one of the better has one of the better renting rates in the United States, probably, in terms of, 2-bedroom apartments for $750, $800, as opposed to a 1-bedroom that's, because we've been here 3 years, is north of $1,000 easily. So, just kind of economics and family. As my parents are getting older and other members of my family have had health scares, it's better to kind of circle the wagons a little bit. So we'll have a new place in December. I'm definitely going to be streaming a couple times in December. The plan currently is to kind of wind down the Prowess stuff, kind of compress it a little bit. I've picked up Storm in the meantime, so there will be a couple of Storm videos coming out of the next several weeks. And then, yes?
I'm just listening.
And then December, hopefully the 15th and 22nd, at least, we'll be able to stream, but
you should be able to stream on the 8th.
We'll see. It depends on if we have any issues.
You'll be able to stream most likely on the 8th. I'm going to try to make sure of that.
Why? Just get me out of your hair?
Yeah, I'm unpacking.
But, yeah. I mean, checking both YouTube and whatchamacallit here to see if there are any questions about Prowess. Yeah, she said chances are I'll be able to stream the 8th. I'm not counting on it. I'd like to, but
I am.
she said the 8th you stream on the 8th. Hey Foz, I don't know if you saw War Dog got on last week's stream for a little bit there. So I haven't seen Kyle in a while, but at least War Dog and O'Doyle have been showing up. Hey Daniel, Foz, want to thank you guys for hanging out. Salty as well. I think I've seen you before in here, Salty. Not on the Twitch side, but on the YouTube side. I'm pretty sure you've been in here some stuff. Stable Land is the deck for filtering lands on top of the library. So you can use it for a couple of things. You can use it to filter for lands with Bauble. But it's mainly designed to be a card advantage spell in the mid game with a little bit of damage attached to it. Filtering with, using your extra energy from Galv Discharge and Raptor to get a couple bites at the apple, and then using the Unstable Amulet static text to say you have 2 or 3 Unstable Amulets out on like turn 6 or 7, and you exile a Lightning Bolt with one of them. All of a sudden, your Lightning Bolt deals 5, 6, 7 damage rather than, or you have a couple of these out, and then all of a sudden you drop an Underworld Breach, and you have Mishra's Baubles shocking your opponent from the graveyard. I mean, there are a number of lines that Unstable Amulet unlocks that almost no other card in Prowess can unlock in terms of kind of having a mid-range game plan. So kind of a solid plan B once your initial aggressive wave kind of wears off. Now, I think, and this is just kind of speculating, I think if the One Ring ever gets banned, or Flage gets banned, or something gets knocked down to knock Boros down a peg, I do think Prowess gets a lot better in a non-the One Ring format. Because I think the attrition plan that this deck had, especially when you combine it with Questing Druid and the subsequent adventure card Slay the Beast, I think this deck had the tools to compete against Boros without the One Ring kind of being the nail in the coffin. So I don't think this deck is as far off as Burn from being good in the format, but I still think it needs something to shift in the format for it to be even beyond F&M playable. I'll put it that way. So, kind of hope that answers your question. I don't know if they'll ban the One Ring or not. I'm just saying, if they do, this deck will come back more powerful. But who knows? I don't know what their arrangements are for universes beyond nonsense, etc. So, anywho, I want to thank everybody for hanging out tonight. I really appreciate the support over the years, guys. And here's hoping that someday, not in the distant future, that Red Aggro will be playable again in Modern. But for now, unfortunately, that door seems to have shut on the format. So, anyways, we'll be back next week for the Teamer / Is It Bootcamp.